Hello and welcome to the Level Up Lounge. I'm John Richardson, joined as always by Dwayne Wilson-Clark. And today we've got a show that several of our listeners have been asking these sort of questions. They want to understand more about esports. They want to understand more about the investment in the region. And who better to come on the show and talk to us about that than Paul Dawalibi, who is the founder of Holodeck, or CEO of Holodeck Ventures, the host of CNBC Arabia's Game Changers show, and the most electrifying man in gaming, shall we say?
I think this is unquestionable. There's no doubt in that, on that respect.
So, Paul, really pleased to have you on the show today.
Great to be here.
Obviously, I recently came on your show, and it's only fair that I invite you onto our show now.
Fair trade.
Exactly. So today we just wanted to have a bit of a conversation about the current state of the region in terms of gaming, where it currently sits, where we think it's going to get to. We want to touch on esports. We want to touch on investment. We want to touch on Web3 gaming as well. All these different areas. And then find out a little bit more about maybe what's on your Steam Deck at the moment and what you're currently playing. So I want to sort of get started with gaming in this region. Obviously, people that don't know you or do know you is you have a very good opinion on stuff and a very strong opinion on stuff. So wanted to start by understanding, how do you currently see the state of gaming within the MENA region right now?
Yeah, it's a big question.
It's a big question.
It's a big question. I don't know if there's a nice, short, concise answer to that, but I'll try. I'll preface it though by saying, look, most people know me from a podcast I used to do, and they called me the prophet. And the reason is I talk a lot about the future and what I think is going to happen in an ecosystem. Part of it is just because if you've been doing this long enough, you sort of see cycles, you see trends, and you're able to recognize patterns over time. And so these are my opinions about where the industry in this region is going. But I was living in North America, not in the Middle East, for most of my career. I moved here, and I'll open with this, because I used to say on my podcast, everyone's asleep on the Middle East. Everyone's not realizing that this is the sleeping giant in terms of gaming. As soon as the pieces start coming together there, they will be a global gaming hub. And at some point I got tired of talking about it and said, let me just go be a part of it. Let me help make my own prophecy happen. I guess cheating a little bit as a prophet when you help make your own prophecy a reality. But that is why I moved here. And the reality is, here you have, and I'm sure you've heard this on this podcast before, you have all the elements required, right? You have government conviction at the highest levels. You have demographics that help support gaming, right? You have young populations, you have money to spend, you have all sort of these check boxes. And when you're in the Middle East, you're at sort of a geographical crossroads. You have easy access to Europe and easy access to Asia, so it's a good place to put people and put talent. Those are sort of the check boxes you hear all the time and why it should succeed here. The reality on the ground is a bit more complex, because it's not one Middle East. Saudi Arabia has their own efforts and their own vision. Even in the UAE, what Abu Dhabi is doing is different from what Dubai is doing, is different from what Iraq is doing, is different from what everyone is doing, basically. And then you have sort of the rest. You have Bahrain, you have Qatar, you have some of the other economies that are thinking about gaming or doing something around gaming. And each, I would argue, has its own strengths. Its own strengths and weaknesses. For better or for worse, Saudi Arabia has decided to focus very much on esports, very heavily into esports. I think I saw a statistic the other day. They control essentially 40% of the esports market already. Wow. It's a big chunk. It's a relatively small market. Keep in mind, when I say esports, I mean competitive gaming on a stage for an audience. So it's a very tiny piece of the overall gaming pie. But they've gone all in on that. And that's their focus. Esports World Cup, previously called Gamers 8. Abu Dhabi has taken a very different approach. For a couple of years, the approach was, let's subsidize game studios. So if you come to Abu Dhabi, we'll cover some of the employee salaries. We'll give you maybe some space to work out of. And that's the play, because we want studios to move here. Dubai, up until very recently, didn't have much of a play. There is now a Dubai program for gaming, the committee of which I sit on, and recently announced the Dubai gaming visa to try and enable talent.
Residency, I've been told it needs to be called.
I got corrected yesterday also. Residency, sorry. But you see how everyone sort of is trying to play slightly differently. I obviously have strong opinions on who I think is going to win or lose. It's not a winner-take-all market, of course, right? If Saudi invests billions in esports, it's going to elevate the entire region. But I do think some are doing it better than others.
No, I think that's... Looking at that then, do you think Dubai have challenges ahead of themselves in where they have different bodies making different moves, but from an outside looking in, they're not talking to each other right now?
Yeah.
And I see that being a bit of a problem where you maybe have got the Dubai program for gaming, which is being led by the Future Foundation, etc. But are they talking to what the guys at DMCC are doing? Are they then... Well, we know they're really not talking to Abu Dhabi Gaming, which the UAE as a whole you'd like to think would be coming together and pulling for the same team, but there's a competition in themselves.
Yeah.
How do you see... We look at Dubai. We use Dubai as an example because we live here.
Yeah.
How do you see that working? Is there still challenges that they're facing because of that reason?
Major challenges. Now, I will say I was in a meeting just yesterday with all the people you mentioned in the same room.
Well, that's a start.
So it's a start. Now, are all those people moving in the same direction, rowing in the same direction, with one singular vision, with a single source of resources and capital? Right? There's a lot of but.
Yeah.
So it's not perfect, but it's a start. Now, I co-authored a report with BCG, it's been maybe almost 2 years now, a year and a half ago, where I mentioned this being probably the UAE's biggest problem.
Yeah.
No single cohesive vision, strategy, and more importantly, owner, right? Which minister owns gaming in the UAE? Even in Dubai, that doesn't exist, right? We have someone for AI, we have no one for gaming. And so I think someone owning it, one budget, one pocket, one vision, trying to push everyone in the same direction is a must for the UAE to be competitive, not just regionally, but globally. Dubai's challenge, there's a few, I will say. And it being fragmented is definitely one of them, because I'll go one step further. There's even more players than that, right? So you got Future Foundation, you have Dubai Chamber, you have DMCC, you have DIFC, you have all the other free zones. Like there's a bunch of sort of secondary free zones. You have like more quasi-government entities that are doing things also in gaming. And so there's a lot that everyone's not rowing in the same direction. Now, Dubai's advantage is it's easy to bring talent here. This is a competitive advantage that Saudi Arabia does not have, right? Trying to get someone to move to Riyadh, as much progress that has been made there is not simple. It's a very difficult task. It's a high hurdle, very high bar. So you tend to have to pay those people way more to get them to make that move. Dubai, everyone wants to live here, right?
Very
so that
true.
hurdle doesn't exist at all.
Yeah.
Dubai's challenge is an unwillingness to invest. And part of the reason is they've never really had to, at least not in recent history.
Yeah.
Right? The world has come to Dubai. Businesses have been started in Dubai. They've not had to invest or subsidize or do anything major from a financial standpoint to get people to make the move here, because Dubai has always been an attractive place to come to. And tourism drives so much of that. You have so many people that pass through here anyways. They like to do business here. But in a world where an hour away, you have someone dangling millions of dollars.
Yeah. It's quite tempting.
It's hard to be competitive, or harder.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge, right? We're not operating in a vacuum. There are other challengers within the UAE and outside the UAE that are better funded, that have more financial resources, and therefore can do some things better. Because if I'm a game studio, and the VC environment, the fundraising environment for game studios today, very challenging.
Yeah.
Very challenging. Raising money is not easy. Making great games is not easy. And for those studios, right now, Saudi Arabia feels like a lot easier to go get a check than in Dubai, where the government is not really financing anything.
Yeah, I was at an event over the last week or so, and there was government officials there, and they were almost pushing that onus, because the conversation was around subsidising, a bit like what Abu Dhabi are doing. And it was very much, well, the private sector need to own this. It needs to be driven from the private sector. It doesn't need to be, don't look at the government constantly and go, give us some money to help, give us some money to help, which I agree with to an extent.
Yeah.
But when you have got a 45-minute drive away to Yas Island from the south of Dubai, and it's the same, you can live there, work there, come and spend your weekends in Dubai,
Yeah.
but yet they're subsidizing and giving all sorts of different support. It's a hard decision you've got to make then, how much you want to be in Dubai versus what's going to save you money in the long term.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to think if we don't subsidize, if we don't invest, if we don't do anything, business will still come here. That may work for certain industries, but I can tell you when you want to build an ecosystem from zero, no matter how attractive the place is, government needs to have some role, needs to prime the pump in some way. And there's plenty of precedent for this. I'm originally born in Canada, I'm Canadian Lebanese. And I had a major hand in helping to build the venture and tech ecosystem that is flourishing in Canada today. I can tell you, Canada didn't just wake up one day, late 90s, early 2000s, and say, we want to be the next Silicon Valley. Corporate people go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work. It's nice. That would be great if it worked, if it was that easy. But it doesn't work like that, right? And so subsidy programs had to be put in place, programs that in fact still exist today, what they call shred credits, to encourage R&D work, to encourage development, like technology development. And investment programs were seeded by the government. Now, various arms of the Canadian government, but they were seeded by them. So a fund that I managed, a well-known fund in Canada that I managed for many years, was seeded from that program. Existed because the Canadian government essentially made that initial push for dollars to go in that direction. So I'm not saying, and this is where Saudi Arabia worries me.
Yeah.
Because what they're building today is 100% dependent on the government continuing to write checks year after year after year after year. The second Saudi Arabia as a government stops writing checks, gaming disappears from Saudi Arabia.
Do you think the region, or sort of KSA especially, do you think they've gone too far, too all in terms of like the esports sector? Do you think they should have diversified a lot more than they have?
They've gone way too all in on esports.
So a bit of a risky move, in your opinion?
I'll take it one step further. I think it's a huge mistake. Huge mistake. Okay. And an avoidable one, unfortunately, because I think one of the advantages of me having operated in the West and then come here is I saw what didn't work in the West.
Yeah.
And gaming is not a new industry. I think it's new to a lot of people. It's definitely mainstream in a way it's never been before, but it's not a new industry. And the West had a huge hype cycle around esports, where every investor was pouring money, where everyone was starting an esports company, where even the big game developers like Activision Blizzard were launching leagues. And the reality is none of those really worked. None of those really worked from a financial standpoint or generated any kind of significant financial return. And so there were lessons learned. Esports is really difficult as a standalone exercise. It can be good, and for example, Riot's a perfect example of this. Riot uses esports to sell more in-game cosmetics for League of Legends. That's it, to increase their audience and their visibility, and they understand it as a marketing exercise, not as a revenue center.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that when I look at Saudi, I think it's almost like they've looked at esports. They've seen that what the industry should be worth in the next 8 to 10 years. I think it's going to be up sort of $9-10 billion, and they've invested everything into that, and they've gone hard.
And esports city as well.
Is it Qadira? I think it's the city for esports, and the World Cup had like a combined prize pot. I think it was 60 million, which is the largest ever.
Yeah,
it just seems like, and there is a Saudi thing, is big, the biggest. Let's let everyone know about it, and they've kind of gone all in on it. And it is one of those industries where, like you say, there's been. If you look at the people that have gone quite hard on it, you've got Tencent, Riot, Epic, even like Ninjas in Pajamas recently. I think it was last year with a big piece on that. So
and recently went public.
Exactly. So you've got companies that have made big ploys at it, but a lot of them, like you say, are side efforts to what they're actually doing. So to invest so much money in it and commit wholeheartedly into it, what happens in 2 to 3 years if it's not generating what they're expecting it to do? Do they just pull the plug and go, well, we're not doing it anymore?
That's a great question. And I'll say, if I give Saudi Arabia no benefit of the doubt, they became enamored with the shiny thing that the West was enamored with 10 years ago. because esports is a shiny bauble. It looks fancy, right? It's high profile, it's athletes, it's big show, big entertainment, big expense, big prize pools, big, right? And so it's easy to become enamored with it. So if I give them no credit at all, they mistakenly got enamored with something that is financially unsustainable, looks and feels sexy. Everyone can pat themselves on the back and say, we got millions of viewers, which, by the way, they paid for, but got millions of views on Esports World Cup, right? And then go home. If I give them all the benefit of the doubt, if I give them all the credit in the world, and I'm trying to think, okay, Saudi Arabia 4D chess here. It could be that they're investing heavily in esports because it's a way in. It's a foot in the door. And I'll use a kind of a silly example to make my point. Saudi Arabia tries to call up Riot. Riot doesn't answer their phone call because it's Saudi Arabia, and there's some, old stigmas around that in the West that I think are, as an aside, unfair and not correct. But that's the stigma in the West, and it exists. And no one answers their call. And so they've used esports potentially as a way to encourage developers like Riot, right? Valorant was one of the games that they gave awards to, one breakthrough game of the year, but came out in 2019 or 2018.
5 years later.
Yeah. So, they're really courting Riot, and they're using Esports World Cup and esports to court and build relationships with developers. And I think that's actually clever. Yeah. If that's how you're spending the millions as a networking tool, right? As a draw to start having those conversations, that's clever. Now, is it a massive waste of money? No question. Do they have massive amounts of money to waste? Yes. Yeah. But I think, let's be honest in the industry to say, okay, this is cool. Let's not pretend that it's financially sustainable, right? Like when the title sponsors of Esports World Cup are all companies owned by the same company that also owns Esports World Cup. Like, let's be honest, you're moving money from one pocket to another.
It's your own propaganda type thing.
No, but it's good, right? Like, it's good as a way to export Saudi Arabia to the world. Yeah. And in that way, it succeeds. Where I challenge things is the money better spent in other ways? Because that's the interesting business conversation, right? The 60 million prize pool. Would they still have got the same audience if the prize pool was 25 million? Probably. Yeah. Well, 35 million, you can build a lot of gaming startups. And if you have a gaming startup, a studio that puts out the next, I'll say Fortnite, but the next Pal World or the next Splitgate, like studios that were really small and made big waves, right? Well, now you're on the map in a much bigger way even than Esports World Cup. And so I always think about what was the missed opportunity in spending so much on esports, not it has no use. Because I understand, I think, why they're using it in this way. I think I understand why they're trying to do esports Olympics, which to me, again, at face value, totally misguided. Yeah. Olympics as a brand's not relevant anymore, definitely not relevant with the demographic of young gamers. Yeah. And esports mixed with Olympics, you have two sort of irrelevant things trying to be relevant.
It'll be like that breakdancing.
Yeah, but if your goal is to bring Olympics proper to Saudi Arabia, I could see how doing an esports Olympics gives you a good excuse to cozy up to the IOC, to build relationships there. It's a stepping stone. So I don't fault them for using esports in the way that they are. Where I fault them is, what was the missed opportunity because of the amount you're having to spend in that one area, and knowing that it's not a sustainable area?
What do you think the future of esports is? Like, even outside of the region, like, what do you think the long-term goal of, or not goal, but what do you think, where does the esports end up in the next 10 years?
I think it will still be, a rounding error on the overall gaming industry. Yeah. I think there will be always a hardcore fan base that loves a certain game that will watch that game competed at the highest level. But the reality is, like, your average streamer, even just chatting streamer, has a bigger audience than Esports World Cup had. Yeah. Right? And so, like, you're talking about a very, 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 very small piece of the gaming pie. From a financial perspective, from an investor perspective, to me, it's not exciting. It will never be big enough to be exciting from a financial perspective. But it will be a marketing exercise. 10 years from now, any game that has a competitive element will probably use esports in some way to help monetize their game or grow the audience for their game.
It's a bit like in football where you get a sleeve sponsor.
Yeah.
It's marketing.
Yeah.
So you're going to
Yeah.
do the same thing. You're going to invest a small amount of money into it just for exposure.
That's it.
Do you expect to see a return on that? A small amount.
Marginal,
But that's
yeah.
not why you're doing it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and usually the return is a bit fluffier, right? It's like it's not necessarily directly monetizable, but it's leading to something good for your brand.
Yeah.
Right? Like League of Legends, their World Championship event is good for League of Legends as a game and keeping the game in people's minds and relevant and playing and active and buying, World Championship specific cosmetics and things like that. It's good for that. But it doesn't make money.
No. It just pays for that maintenance almost.
That's it.
So you touched on it a little bit in there where we were talking about the money being invested into esports, which could have maybe gone into proper game development. So looking at mobile gaming, console, more traditional PC gaming, how important do you see that playing a part within that gaming ecosystem within the region? Because if everyone just runs at esports, they're missing a whole big trick over here that they should be investing in because, as you say, you create that one studio that makes a hit, puts you on the map a lot quicker than it does running an esports event for 3 or 4 years that doesn't generate anything.
Yeah, no governments in the region other than Saudi Arabia should be looking at esports. I think every government should recognize this is Saudi Arabia's shiny bauble. Let them have it. Let them spend all their time and focus and resources on it. There is a much, much bigger prize to be had. And game development, no question, is the bigger financial prize, no question. And it's a bit of a white space now. There's no one in the region, even in the last few years, that has really taken a dominant position. No one that has put all the ecosystem pieces together because it requires an ecosystem. Just having a subsidy program is not enough. Just having an investment program is not enough. Just having a cool building that everyone can work in is not enough. You can't just have any one element. It all needs to come together. And so the reality on the ground is Saudi Arabia is so focused on esports, that's opening a huge window for other people to come in. And the recent example I love is Black Myth Wukong. Have you seen this success out of China?
Huge.
Amazing.
Huge, right? At last I saw there are 18 million copies, and that's probably a week old data. Huge success, right? AAA game out of China. And what's incredible about it in my mind is not just the financial success, but the success in this game, or the ability of this game to export Chinese culture, which is what every government in this region is wanting to do, right? They all talk about it.
So that leads me on to what I was actually going to ask you next, and I've got it written down here as proof. But how important do you feel local culture is in game development? Because this is a topic that I've discussed with other people, and they see it as being of vital importance. Now, there's two ways of looking at it. A, you want to create a game that sells, and you want it to sell globally.
Yeah.
But then you also want to create that culture that puts that on the map.
Yeah.
So how important do you think that is within game development? And do you think the region should be striving to make their equivalent of a Wukong?
Yes. The answer is yes. There's some nuance here. I would say not always, but often, the desires of government are sometimes at odds with the desires of the private sector. They're not always 100% aligned. For example, governments in the region, when they think about gaming, they want to create jobs. Job creation is always very top of mind, right?
Yeah.
If you're a studio and you're the CEO of a studio, yes, you want to hire good people, but your goal when you wake up in the morning is, what's the maximum number of people I can hire today, right? So I'm not saying there's misalignment of goals, but studios want to stay lean, hire the best people, have just as much resources as you need to deliver a game. Exporting culture, I think, is similar in the sense that for government, it's very important. Every government in this region wants to export their culture, their history, and it's important from a PR of the country standpoint. It's important from a tourism standpoint, right? There are a lot of benefits around exporting your culture to the world. For the studios themselves, it's not the most important thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, the most important thing in the world for a studio is making a great game. If the game's not fun, it doesn't matter how much culture it's exporting, no one's going to play it.
Yeah.
But having a unique culture at the center of your game or intertwined in your game is definitely a competitive advantage and something unique that a studio sitting in LA can't do. And so from can I create a unique product that maybe the market has not seen? This is something that studios here can leverage that has not been done to death in the gaming industry. We have not seen great games that have exported Middle Eastern culture. And so there's an opportunity there to do something unique, do something differentiated, and leverage that. But it's not the killer app. It's not the thing that gets people to play.
Yeah, and I think that Asia have done that so well. Like we talk about Wukong, Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah.
Even, I know obviously Ubisoft are having a bit of a tough time recently with their new title, with the character, and it's all whether it's factually correct or not. But you can see what they do there is, like you say, they export that game with the culture, with the feelings, with the aesthetics, and that can be played by anyone in the world. So like you say, it's if you do it, you've got to do it properly, but it's also got to be a game that people are going to want to pick up regardless of the culture. Like they're games that you'll pick up whether you care whether it's Chinese folklore or whether, or you don't, it doesn't make a difference to you. The gameplay, the aesthetics, that's why you pick it up, regardless
quality
of
game development.
Exactly. So I think that's vitally important. And like you say, if you can get the culture into it, then you've got an opportunity that you won't have done otherwise.
Absolutely, but it doesn't prevent a successful game coming from this region that has no culture whatsoever in it, right? Like you want to make a great futuristic shooter here, great, it can still be successful. And I would argue, in fact, that the West, in some ways, is not nearly as competitive. This is why the window of opportunity to me is even more exciting, right? You have Saudi Arabia so focused on esports, eye off the game development ball. You have the West that's gone so woke in their game development, they're going broke, literally. And you know, we saw with Concord being shut down 2 weeks after it launched, Star Wars Outlaws being a massive failure, right? We're seeing the impact of these kinds of initiatives. You have a culture here, forget about the Middle Eastern specific piece of it, that's more traditional, that's more sort of rooted in the kinds of values that I think a lot of gamers still want, still crave, and are not getting from the Western studios.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, actually.
I really like that.
I agree on that. So I think you may have then answered this question as well when we were talking earlier about when we look at investment. And we look at, if you were an investor coming into the region, where to put your money, where to place your bets. We look at traditional gaming and we look at esports.
Yeah.
And I assume that you're going to go straight onto what the first point of that, straight into more traditional game development is where people should be looking to place their bets for this region.
No question. I think, well, if you're government, for sure, that's the big prize. And there's nuance in all of them, right? Like if you're sitting in Iraq today, where you're going to get legalized gambling, for example, well, there's an opportunity to do game development, but specifically for online casino gaming, for example. Like those slot machines are games fundamentally. In fact, they're not that far from most mobile games. Like I used to joke that mobile games were basically glorified slot machines. And so it's still game development, right? So there's an opportunity to really dominate your niche based on where you are, what the talent landscape looks like there, what the resources available are. So there's a lot of opportunity around game development, no question. I think esports as an investor, if you're a financial investor, it's big sort of stay away, don't touch this. This is only for governments willing to lose money. I think where I get excited sort of about the future, though, where I think bigger picture, longer term investing is not just game development, but what I call essentially the gamification of everything. And I literally trademarked the phrase, the future is fun, because it's at the core of my thesis as a business person, as an investor, as a human being. I think we often sit, and you recently, AI Center launches basically every week in Dubai here now. And everyone's talking about the future of work. Right? AI is going to take all our jobs. AI is going to think for us. AI is going to do everything for us. Okay, I believe that. I buy it. What does that mean for humanity?
Yeah.
What does that mean in terms of, okay, if the machine's going to do my job, what do I do with the rest of my time?
More time for gaming.
More time for entertainment and leisure. And if you, in fact, go back in history, if you look at the trend over the last 25, 30,000 years of human history, in fact, one of the most consistent trend lines is we work increasingly less and less. Again, over I'm not talking about 1 year to the next. I'm talking about over a big time scale.
Yeah.
Right? We don't have to get up at 4 a.m. anymore and till the field. The machines are doing it now, right?
Yeah.
And so the more machines do, the more we have time for leisure as humanity. And so me as an investor, long-term thinking, I want to bet on the growing piece of the pie, not the shrinking piece of the pie. Work is what's shrinking. Leisure and entertainment is what will grow. That's what gets me excited from a long-term investment standpoint. And in fact, I called my company Holodeck. Do you guys know where it's from, this term?
Star Trek.
It's a Star Trek term.
Yeah.
It's very nerdy. I remember, John, you were one of the few people who knew that reference. I remember now. And it was a room on the Starship Enterprise and on most starships and space stations for the Star Trek nerds out there. And the holodeck could create any reality you wanted. So you could say, I want to go skiing in the Alps, or you could say, I want to be the hero in a Sherlock Holmes novel. It doesn't matter. The holodeck could create that reality and your brain could not tell the difference. To you, you're skiing in the Alps, you're high up, you're cold, you have snow under your feet, you don't see walls, you don't see limits, you are in the Alps. Now, I don't know with 100% certainty, are we going to get to Star Trek holodecks? Now, if you ask me not on the record, I do think we will. We are going to develop holodecks. But I believe in this future where everything gets gamified in some way, where virtual worlds and virtual reproductions of everything become our reality in a major way. Because why would I put my kid in real life American football or real life go-karting where he could get hurt if I can go put him in a holodeck, right? Why would I go mountain climbing in real life when I can go in a holodeck? Why would I go shopping in a mall when I could have a crazy sort of experience activation in a holodeck? So it's not just gaming that gets disrupted by gaming. It's every industry: travel, education,
medical
retail, healthcare, transportation, you name it. Today, literally anything can be gamified, and the future, everything will be disrupted by holodecks. So step one is gamify everything, right? My drive here should have been gamified. I should have had a quest that if I pass through these toll gates, I got something.
Apart from having to pay for it.
But literally everything can be made more fun.
Yeah.
And in Dubai, where fintech's so big, the joke I often make is banking. Banking is phenomenally boring. Phenomenally boring.
Yeah.
Money is fun though, right? Making money is fun.
Yeah.
Having money is fun. So why is banking so boring?
Because it's normally money going out than money coming in.
Yeah.
No, but the reality is this loop that is at the core of gaming, right? Give you some challenge, have you do the challenge. When you accomplish it, give you some kind of reward and move you up to the next challenge.
Yeah.
That's the loop at the core of gaming, all games.
Well, it's like if you look at your Duolingo,
Yeah.
where you're learning a language, it's completely gamified.
Absolutely.
Where you get 3 stars, or if you've got 2 stars, you can go back and try that level again, and then you achieve your 3 stars. And it's completely gamified, and it makes it a lot more fun.
No question. And more engaging, and you learn better because humans learn through play. Look, the reality is, this is why I think everyone is massively underestimating the size of the gaming industry. Everyone's talking about gaming in terms of hundreds of billions. I think you're missing it by at least 1 order of magnitude, maybe 2. We're talking about an industry that will be worth trillions. If we describe gaming as the creation of virtual worlds and integrating fun and that loop in everything we do, gaming becomes by far the biggest industry on the planet. It won't even be close. Maybe healthcare.
Yeah. But even then, you take the gamification pack out and you look at the immersive space when you say virtual reality, everything's moving towards immersive tech.
Yeah.
And at the core of that is gaming.
No question.
So it is something that touches and will touch everything going forward. But like you say, people see gaming, they think of...
Yeah, VR is an interesting one because everyone today looks at the headsets and go, I would never wear that. That's like, okay, but that's technology today.
Yeah.
I should show you headsets from like 20 years ago.
I always think
it's come a
with
long
that,
way. So there is a future where I can guarantee you the headset, you will not even see it. If it's even a headset, it might be an implant, it might be who knows.
It could even be a pair of Ray-Bans, but it will do the same thing.
It's the same with like mobile phones. Like going back 10, 15 years ago, people would have just said, no, I'm not going to walk around with these. Do you know what I mean? But fast forward 10, 15 years later, almost everyone has a smartphone.
Phones have got bigger. Phones were getting smaller. When you had like Nokia or 8210, it was like about that, like a matchbox. Like you could barely press the buttons. And now now you got the 16 Pro coming out, which is like, I can't even fit it in my pocket sort of thing. So we go through these trends where everything goes smaller, then everything gets bigger. And the reason it's bigger is because people want bigger screens. They want to be able to game on it. They want to be able...
I was going to say, you know why the screens are getting bigger? You know what's driving almost all of the innovation left in the cell phone space, in the mobile space? It's gaming.
Yeah, gaming and streaming.
There's no reason to make those chips faster so someone can watch YouTube. Like phones from 10 years ago watched YouTube no problem.
Yeah.
The only reason all of this... And this is why gaming, to me, is and you hit it, gaming is the most important industry on the planet because the technologies at the core of gaming drive all the most important innovation. We talked about AI. The GPUs powering the AI revolution, who's making them today? NVIDIA. Yeah. What was NVIDIA making up until literally 2 years ago?
Exactly, gaming machines.
Gaming machines, right? GPUs for people to play games. I mean, I've been a customer of NVIDIA for almost 20 years now. A stupid me to buy nearly enough stock.
Missed the boat on that one completely.
But gaming is the single most important industry from a technological innovation standpoint. And again, Holodeck's going to take that to the next level.
Perfect. Well, moving on, we've got one more topic that we want to cover before we get to the more fun part of the show. And I'm going to let Dwayne go with you with this one.
Web3 gaming. I know it's a bit of a marmite, if you like, within the industry. I mean, how do you feel about it personally, the Web3 and crypto space within gaming? Something you're a fan of or not at all?
Look, I'm a crypto skeptic in general.
Yeah.
Very broadly. And I'm a crypto skeptic for a number of reasons that I think the crypto community has not addressed. One, crypto in general has not found, in French they say your raison d'être, your reason to exist.
Okay. Glad you clarified that.
The reason why you're there.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of promise with crypto, right? At first it was going to revolutionize banking. Look, I don't know anyone who has got rid of their bank account yet. Maybe it's coming, but it's been a while and no one has. So, now a lot of the crypto companies want to work with the banks. It used to be, they used to wear shirts that said F the banks. Now everyone wants to partner with banks. So it's been a lot of unfulfilled promise around what is the killer app for crypto. And I think I would not even have paid attention to crypto as an investor, as someone who's been interested in technology. I'm a computer science major, from many, many years ago. I'm a tech geek to my core. I would not even have been interested in crypto until they decided to latch themselves onto gaming. And what I saw was not, here's a technology that makes games more fun, or here's a technology that allows gaming companies to make more money without harming the user experience. Or I didn't see any real benefit to the gaming industry. What I saw was a lot of people trying to get rich quick on something that many more people didn't fully understand. And for whatever reason, fortunately, a lot of the crypto industry has been scams, rug pull scams, NFTs this, NFTs that. With gaming, that reason to exist also has not been articulated. There's no crypto game today that is more fun because of the crypto element, or Web3 or blockchain or whatever you want to call it. None. And this is why none of them have succeeded. I think the crypto industry, because they didn't come from gaming, most of them, and that's the other big issue I had. A lot of the Web3 gaming companies were crypto people first who decided they could go make fun games. Doesn't work. Making games is hard, even for gaming people. And so trying to convince people that they should play a game because they could own that sword, what does that mean? The ownership is, in my mind, such a weak use case, right? I played 20 years of World of Warcraft. Okay, I don't own an NFT of any of the items I have, but you can bet I'm real attached to them, right? And I had a lot of fun earning them. And I had a lot of fun playing the game, the 20,000 hours I have over the years. It didn't take away from any of the fun. Owning it doesn't add anything. And there's this math I always have when new technologies emerge, which is, what is the benefit to the user? Let's quantify that in some way, measure it in some way. How much better does it make this important characteristic, which for games is the fun piece? And on the other side of the equation, you have what friction does it create, or what existing behaviors need to be overcome? Because that's always the negative side, right? You either need to change the way someone's doing something, or it makes some other part of the game worse in some way. And with crypto games, with Web3 gaming, the math has never worked. The benefit has never been so great that it overcomes all the negatives and all of the friction created, right? To play a crypto game, again, there are some that are trying to work around this, but you still needed a crypto wallet of some sort. So your total addressable audience reduces by an order of magnitude. You know, you go from 200, 300 million people with active crypto wallets instead of an audience of 3 billion gamers. And by focusing on tokenization and tokens and blockchain, a lot of these games lost sight of the game loop that made them fun. Go in the Discord communities for most of these Web3 games. If you go in a World of Warcraft Discord community, they're talking about this quest, this sword, what is my best in slot for this class with this race. They're talking about the game.
Yeah.
You go into most Discords, again, I'll not generalize to everyone, but pretty broadly, most Web3 games, most crypto games, you go into those Discord communities, it's to the moon, what's the price of the token, you know, diamond hands, golden hands, paper hands, right? Like, it has nothing to do with the game itself.
It's about the monetary aspect of it and the objectified object of it, rather than, like you say, playing for enjoyment.
Play for fun is the only kind of play that works. Not play to earn, play to own, play to whatever. There's only one word you can put after play that works successfully, and that's fun. If you're doing it for any other reason, and like to me, I always try and simplify the example. I say, okay, if you've been to a Taylor Swift concert, you paid, I don't know, $1,000 for a seat at a Taylor Swift concert these days. And when you left, Taylor Swift didn't cut you a check.
Be nice if she did.
Yeah.
But you're not upset about it.
No.
Because the transaction was you paid, she gave you some enjoyment, some entertainment.
And you left happy.
Yeah.
And you left happy.
That's a very good analogy. Yeah.
So, no, well, that's a good thing. We need to move on to the last part of the show, because the producer over there is waving his hands at me. Hopefully you're going to give me an extra 5 minutes at the end. Would be lovely if you can. So we want to move on to kind of how you got into gaming, where the love came from, what you're playing right now as well. So I want to start it with, where did it all begin for you? Were you a PC gamer? Did you move into consoles? Where did it all begin?
Yeah, I'll blame my dad, which I think is how a lot of people start. My dad still to this day is a hardcore gamer, literally plays games every day. When I was growing up, he was a very senior executive at IBM. And so we were one of the families that had the very first IBM PC. And so I was a PC gamer. There's a picture of me at 1 year old being held in front of the original IBM PC with the original Microsoft Flight Simulator 1.0 running on it. So I've been a PC gamer since I was 1 year old. And my hardcore PC gamer, you know, you will take my mouse, you'll pry my mouse and keyboard from my cold dead hands. I don't want to have anything to do with consoles, controllers, cell phones. You can leave all of that. Me personally as a gamer, I recognize that they make a lot of money, but me as a gamer. So it started with my dad. My dad, growing up, played games every night, even as senior as an executive as he was, as big of a job as he had, he still made time every night to play. I played with my brother and him all the time. Our basement was this crazy mess of networked PCs that we played Quake on and StarCraft on and EverQuest.
What was the first game that you fell in love with?
The first game I became completely obsessed with, I would say addicted, really addicted to, was EverQuest. Yeah. Maybe still to this day, one of the greatest games ever made. I know you had Mario on the show.
It's funny because our last guest, Cam, he grew up playing EverQuest. And when I sort of said to him, do you want to be on the show? We've just done our first episode. It was with Mario. And I sent him Mario's program. I grew up on those games. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, EverQuest really kicked off that MMO genre. And I'll argue today, even though I played Quake 3 professionally in the very, very early days of esports when there was zero money in it, something called the OGL, the Online Gaming League. More recently, I actually played Apex Legends professionally. And, shooters are always the thing I go back to as something I'm good at. But if you ask me what is the greatest game of all time that I probably have the most hours in over the last 30, 40 years, it's World of Warcraft, no question. This is the greatest game ever made.
Perfect.
And what was your favorite game in the last decade?
I mean, hard not to say WoW. If you're giving me decade, if I like my favorite or what I think is the greatest game ever, WoW captured a magic that no other game has. Now, WoW, I don't think is as great in the last 10 years as it was in the first 5. So if you're telling me strictly the last 10 years, hard not to point to the emergence of like Battle Royale as something that had a major impact on me because I played so much Apex, but Fortnite, PUBG, these kinds of games were major. I would say Civilization is something I've played consistently probably over the last many, many years. I'd love to see the RTS genre come back if you're asking me as a gamer, like old school Command and Conquer, StarCraft. I'd love to see that come back.
I love Command and Conquer.
Yeah.
That stuff like Age of the Empires. Stuff like that. Like, I grew up on Age of the Empires, and I actually tried. I haven't got Steam, and I went and downloaded Steam on my laptop, and I purchased Age of Empires.
Yeah.
But my laptop's not compatible.
Okay.
So now I own it on Steam, but I can't play it. So I probably need to get a different laptop so I can even just jump on it, because I was like, I want that nostalgia of going back on Age of the Empires and just building it up. And I miss those types of games. They're just easy, de-stress, just click around, play around. There's no real intense aspect of it that's going to like get you on the edge of the seat and you have to fully concentrate on.
Now, the most I probably invested in a game though in the last 10 years is Counter-Strike.
Interesting.
No, another not new game, another older game.
Is this what you're currently playing at the moment?
I play some. I always go back to it. Again, it's like it's an old comfortable pillow or something, right? But I have, I joke that my retirement savings are in Counter-Strike because the genius that I was when Bitcoin was maybe at around $100 or $200. I obviously had a lot of gaming PCs always, and a lot of people were mining Bitcoin at the time, and I realized this is free money. This is brilliant, right? Let me mine this Bitcoin thing. And then I realized I could use it to buy something that actually had value to me, which was Counter-Strike skins. So I was selling Bitcoins or using $100 Bitcoins or $200 Bitcoins to buy CS skins, which have gone up in value, not as much as Bitcoin. But,
I was going to say they're worth a bit, but not as much as Bitcoin.
I probably spent millions in Bitcoin to buy the few $100,000 worth of Counter-Strike skins I have today. But again, even then, the ownership of those skins was something we were doing 15 years ago. We didn't need NFTs to do it. We didn't need any of those things to do it. The mechanisms were still there and still worked. But Counter-Strike, again, World of Warcraft, Counter-Strike, these are classics that probably are going to be here another 10 years, no question.
And what game are you looking forward to the most?
Recently I tried the new Deadlock Alpha. I think anything from Valve is exciting. Valve doesn't put out that many games. Dota has been around forever. Obviously, Counter-Strike has been around forever. So this is something exciting. Do I think it's the greatest game ever in its current state? No. I think there's still a lot of work, but they're saying not till 2027, I think, 2026 or 2027. So there's still some time to sort of make it great. And proof even that Valve needs time to make great games. It's not something you can just wake up one morning and make a great game. But I think the promise is there. It's third-person shooter meets League of Legends or Dota, right? Meets MOBA. And I think it has promise. It's a lot of fun.
Perfect. Cool. Well, that's kind of the end of the show. It's been a whirlwind. I think we could have probably stretched this out over a good 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, 100%.
And really got into some depths. But Paul, really pleased to have you on the show. I think your insights are
very valuable.
Very valuable. I think it's going to make good listening for the people that tune into this, and hopefully we can maybe draw up some of your podcast numbers just for having you on here. Would be nice.
Yeah, look, I'll say, guys, first of all, thank you for having me. Second of all, I think doing this is really important for the region. We need more voices talking about the gaming industry. It's why I do my show on CNBC Arabia. It's why I'm very passionate about it. It's why I did 420 something episodes of my podcast when I was living in the West. I think things like this are really important. You guys are doing an amazing job. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And then that's the end of the show then. So thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed that one, and we'll see you again soon.